Hey Jet Setters, it's Joe from the Unveiling Paradise podcast. We've been getting a ton of great feedback about our show, and what we're hearing from you guys is that you love listening to real couples talk about their real wedding day experiences. From their favorite moments to, well, maybe the things they wish they would have changed, and of course, their tips for you guys. If you're searching those episodes, search Real Wedding Perspectives, and you'll find 4 of our very favorite couples talk you through their wedding day adventure. And of course, if you're planning your wedding here in Hawaii, hit us up and ask us about our Unveiling Paradise promo. Happy planning. Welcome everyone to the Unveiling Paradise podcast. Hello, Tessie, my Bessie from another Nessie.
Hey, Joe, my
Bro.
From
another, don't
slow.
say it.
It's a slow morning for us.
It's not a slow morning, but we are here in the studio. So Tessa, you and I talk all the time. We're talking on the phone. We're talking about all these different things that happen at weddings. And we're always like, oh, this is great for podcasts. This is great for, our show. But actually, what I want to talk about is all the conversations we have with all of our potential clients. So like we spend a lot of time on phone calls, on Zoom calls, with people who have just basic questions about whether they think we are going to be a good fit for their wedding.
Exactly. So this, we can call this either the initial consultation, the discovery call, whatever else it is, right? And I think you and I go through the process of talking about our services, obviously trying to sell ourselves, and we always open up to questions. And I think what we're finding is some couples have really great questions. So we are excited to answer. It totally shows off who we are as a planner or as a photographer. And then we also get those really awkward and unproductive questions.
Right. What's funny is actually what I love to do is after I have a call with a couple, I love to just check in with you afterwards.
I know. Oh, I know that.
You're like, oh, how did your call go with Sally? And for me, like, it's so fun just to like bounce this back at you because like, as well as I know that sometimes you're like looking forward to this call and you walk away and you're like, gosh, that was so awkward. Like it was weird. Like sometimes you have these calls with couples and you have this great rapport and they're asking the right questions and you're getting to really understand their vibe and if you're the right fit for their vibe. And then you have these calls, right? And I know that we've shared this like offline a bunch, but it's like you have these calls where you're like, oh my God, like I think there's no way that I'm going to book them. Like we were talking about 2 completely different things, or it was so robotic that I never got to really get to know them, or they never really got to know me.
Well, and I think it's 2 separate things here, or 2 separate subjects that we're talking about, right? One is compatibility with the couple, and that's super important. The next part is how do we find out if we're compatible? And it is asking those right questions, So when we're talking to consultations or discoveries, that's one part. As a planner, what I do, and I know that my relationship with my clients is very different from yours. We are constantly checking in, we're constantly on Zoom calls, on phone calls, and they will often have just a line of questions for me. So what I want to do today is kind of talk to you and talk to our listeners about what are some better questions to ask? What are the ways that we can get the information that we're looking for? And how do we set ourselves up for success? Just to give you, just kind of a high level example, whenever couples are looking for caterers, for example, they are basically getting quotes and they're sending it to me. So maybe we have 3 quotes and they're saying, can you tell me, like we're going to go with this one, caterer A, because they're the cheapest. When we take a look at it, though, it's understanding that a lot of times they're only quoting for the food or maybe the food plus staffing. But the other caterer, maybe the food is actually cheaper, but they're quoting for food, catering, the staffing, the plates, the tent, right? So every caterer's quote might be different. So instead of asking, which one is the best price or which one is the cheapest or, hey, can you send me a menu? It's what are the things that are included in this price, right? So it's how do we ask those better questions so you can make informed decisions throughout your planning process.
And I think that's something that's so interesting, from your perspective is that if you think about what is the best price, what are the services, one, that you need from a caterer? So like if you're thinking like, if you're trying to compare apples to apples, a lot of times you're not doing that. You're comparing apples and oranges or apples and bananas or apples and, or apples to dragon fruit. Like you have to know.
They're not
like,
the same.
Yeah, they're not the same. And also, like what do you need? Like what do you actually need? So if you're just looking at a menu, you're totally right. If it's just a menu, but that's not what you need. You need more than just the menu. So how do we figure that out? Today, we're going to take a deep dive into that. So let's get started.
Welcome to Unveiling Paradise, your go-to destination wedding podcast. I'm Tessa, wedding planner and owner of Fred and Kate Events.
And I'm Joe, wedding and adventure photographer of Joseph Esser Photography. We are based in Hawaii, one of the biggest, most popular locations for destination weddings.
We want to share our real-life experiences with you, give you insight from a professional's perspective, and still make sure you're having fun in the process.
We're huge believers in the fact that planning a destination wedding can be one of the most amazing experiences, and we want to bring you along.
We're so excited to talk with you about weddings, Hawaii, and everything else under the sun.
So pack your bags and let's get started.
All right, welcome back everyone to the show. So today, Tessa, we're talking about what are the best way to frame our questions when we are talking to different vendors. So when we're in the process of trying to figure out who's going to be our DJ or officiant or whoever, what are the right way to frame our questions? Now, you and I know this, like we get a lot of inquiries from couples that say, hey, I'm having a wedding on such and such a date. What's your pricing? Right. And like, I think a lot of times that is such a challenging question. It seems so simple, but it's such a challenging question for us because we need to know what the heck you have planned for your wedding.
I mean, just to kind of quickly talk about my services, right? If people are like, what's your pricing? Well, what are you asking for? What do you want me to do, right? Am I setting up just on the day? We don't do that. But, are we planning? Are we helping you coordinate? Are you reaching out to vendors? Are we helping you with design? Are we creating a layout? There's so many things that go into our pricing that we can kind of give you high level, but we really need to understand more. We need to ask questions, or we need you to come to us with better questions.
It's funny, when I woke up this morning, I got an inquiry. Someone was doing their wedding at Ko'olau, and they're like, hey, can you send us pricing? I had to find out, one, am I even available on their date? Like, if they're planning a wedding that I'm already booked, it doesn't matter what my pricing is. I'm like, where's the venue at? Like how many, like for me, how many people are going to be attending? Is it just 2 people? It's going to be a totally different set of services than if it's 500 people, and they want to do all these different things. First and foremost, when we start inquiring with different vendors, we need to give them at least the bare minimum of knowledge of what they need to even be able to respond to us. Do you have a wedding date booked yet? Do you have a venue booked yet? Those are like kind of critical pieces of information. And then what else might that particular vendor need to know in order to kind of get a good idea before they can even jump on a call with you?
So I think the funny thing is you and I obviously have different businesses.
Right.
When you're saying, are you available? Do you have a venue? Like for us, that's not a qualifier. We don't need that information.
Yeah. What do you need?
So for us as planners, we just need to know, like, are we going to be a good fit? What type of service do you need from us? Do you need help with venue search? Do you need help with creating a budget? Do you need help with design? Because those will all affect the pricing, right? That will affect the amount of work that my team and I put into your wedding planning process.
Right. And taking a really broad view. So like when you're talking to a planner versus a caterer versus a photographer, we have to present them that information that they're going to need to even just get started. For you, it's going to be totally different. And again, what I really love about what you just said is, what are you needing from that vendor? Right? So are you starting from scratch? Are you halfway into planning? Those are critical pieces that really help us kind of navigate and narrow in on what we actually can help you do. So basically, first step, start with as much information. Share as much information as you can about where you're at with each of those vendors. So if it's like a photo booth and your last service you're booking, share all that. Like, here's our venue. We're using this rental company. Like, I think that's super helpful.
Absolutely. So when couples come to me, again, do we need a venue? No. Do we need a date? No. They're nice, they're nice to haves, but if part of our service is you want us to help you find a date and you want us to help you find a venue, then of course you don't have one. I always tell people we just become part of your inner circle where we have to be available on your date in order to work with us. With that said, when I'm talking to couples, the base information that I really like to have is an estimated guest count. Are we looking at 20 people or 200? Because that will absolutely affect the planning, the venues, the vendors, whatnot, and a general budget. So it doesn't have to be perfect. You can be $10,000-$20,000 off from this budget, but generally, what are we looking at? Do you know that you have to work within your income to make this work? Do you know you're going to be taking out a loan? Do you know that parents are going to help? We just need a general idea to then go into the questions that you should be asking me to get the best out of our discovery call.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, so let's jump into this. Let's get into a couple different scenarios. And again, I think for me, it's about framing the right questions. It's about asking the right questions that are going to lead to the answers that you really need to know, right? So can we start with photography?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, so, again, I think what's funny is I get a lot of scripted phone calls where they have, I think the Knot has a list, like a printout of, these 20 questions to ask your photographer, when you're interviewing them. And sometimes, again, I think it just leads to really unproductive answers.
Right.
I think one of the questions that's on there is tell me about what makes you different from other photographers. How do you answer that question? It's you're just going to get a really weird, fluffy answer that doesn't probably lead to anything.
Right.
How am I different? Every single photographer is different. You give us 10 cameras, 10 different lenses, we're all going to shoot completely differently. But what is it that you do specifically that makes you shine? And again, I don't think if you ask that question, you're going to get that answer.
The funny thing about this question is I think a lot of couples, if you were to answer, they don't even know what that means. If you were to tell me, and again, I've been in this industry for a long time. I've seen a lot of photographers. I've seen a lot of different types of filters and photo posing and not posing and all of that stuff. But, if we were in an interview and I was like, Joe, tell me your style. And you answered, I don't know what that means.
Right.
So I think when couples are asking, I don't know if they were to say, editorial or documentary, I promise you every photographer has a slightly definition. And within that, if you're editorial, what does that mean? Does that mean that there's no direction? Because some editorial photographers do give direction to look editorial. So it's just so funny. It's such a vague and difficult question to, number one, to answer as a professional. And number two, as a non-professional, me, for photography, trying to understand what you're telling me.
Right. And what's funny is if you ask that question, what is your style, right? Every photographer is going to say the same buzzword that's trending around at that moment. What's your style? Editorial. What was your style 5 years ago? Fine art photography. What was your style 10 years? Photojournalism. And it's
it's true. I've seen that.
You know what I mean? But it's whatever those buzzwords are that people want to hear, every photographer is going to be saying the same thing. What is the better question for me? I love the question, walk me through the day. What is it actually like to work with you? On the wedding day, are you going to give a lot of direction? Are you going to be in moments? Are you going to be on the sideline, shooting in the bushes, whatever it is? And for me, when I can actually start talking about how I coach my couples, and how I maybe walk them through different parts of their day. So for example, their portraits. What do we do with our couple during the portrait session? Do we say, hey, just stare at each other,
awkwardly?
Yeah. Or do something, hey, just do something, bro, just do something.
Smile at each other.
Smile at each other. For me, I think this is so fun because the photographer brings to a wedding day is going to be a lot of, do they pose you a lot? Are they really hands-on in posing? So if I'm answering that question, I'm I like to make sure that every little thing is perfect and, your chin is, not giving you a double chin, whatever those things are. That might be one answer. Another photographer might say, we just want to be completely in moments. We don't do any posing whatsoever. And I know photographers that do that. They don't want to spend any time with those couples' portraits. They just want to shoot the event as it is. That is a better way to ask, walk me through, this one part of the day. How would you work with me? I've never been married before. I've never done couples portraits before. Walk me through. How do you actually operate? And I think you're going to get to know how that photographer will actually work with you. And if you're actually going to be enjoying working with that photographer.
So what I'm hearing is instead of saying, what's your style? Because my understanding is if I was to answer, or if I as a photographer was to answer and say editorial, documentary, fine art, it's hard to understand what that means. So a better question is, walk me through your process. Walk me through your day. What is my wedding day going to feel like when we work together?
Yeah. I think it's the way you frame the question. If you're actually able to elicit a more natural response than just like putting weird names and weird words that may or may not have the same meaning to the same person, having real examples, getting real answers that really give you a sense of what it's actually like to work with that vendor, that's more helpful.
Okay, here's a great example of a wedding planner question that I always find a little tricky. I never know the best way to answer, and I'm going to be honest, every time I answer, it's something different. I've had a lot of couples, meet with me and then come back and they say, hey, I've interviewed several planners, which is great. You should. We like you the best, but so-and-so's pricing is half your price. Can you match this?
Ooh, so that's interesting. So this is after they've gone through, they like you, but
they like me the best, according to what they say, but I'm maybe double the price of someone else.
So is that a question that they should be asking? Is that a question that is awkward for you to answer?
Well, I think it's a little awkward in the sense that I feel like they're just telling me, can you give me the same level of service at half of the price?
Right.
Right, which is tricky. And again, I'm all for negotiating. I love a good negotiation when I'm shopping and whatnot. But again, is there a better way to ask that question?
So you and I, we interviewed Alan Berg, who's one of our, gurus in the wedding industry. And like a lot of times, again, if this is the first time you've been buying something, you don't know like what the price should be. If you're comparing Tessa, which I'm going to call you like, you're a luxury brand. You deliver a high level of quality, but you're more expensive than some coordinators. If you're comparing a Bentley to a Kia, you know what I mean? Like,
right.
And you're the Bentley in the situation.
Thank you. Thanks for clarifying.
If you're comparing those two, like, is that fair to say? Can you do the same thing for this price? Well, you're not. Are you even talking about the same thing? Are you comparing the same thing?
Exactly. And I think, what we had talked about when we had Alan on our podcast, or when we, kind of talked about these things, it's understanding that if you don't know what you are looking for, price is one of the easiest ways to compare. It is not the best way to compare, but if you have no other knowledge of what to do, right, that's what you ask. For us with wedding planners, I think a better question than, can you discount your price? Or, hey, we met with a bunch, we like you the best, can you price match? Instead of saying that, I think a lot of it is coming to the planner or any vendor and just say, hey, this is our budget. We know that there's other planners in this budget. We understand that you're pricier. Is there any services that we can adjust to lower the price? So instead of just saying, hey, can you do everything for half the price? What are some of the services that we could remove in order to fit within our budget?
So if you're buying a Bentley and you're like, hey, what if we remove like the air conditioner?
It's not the air conditioner, but if you're upgrading to leather seats, if you're upgrading to the bigger rims, if you're upgrading to the coating over your paint, right? There's certain things where you still get that Bentley. You're not going to get the highest level of Bentley, but can you bring it down to something? Like if you buy any car, there's, I don't know, the regular standard car with the roll-up windows, and then you have the car with the power windows, and then
right.
You have the other one that you just say windows and they automatically go down. I don't know. I don't have that car, but I have to believe those exist. So there's different levels of cars. There's different levels of planners. And again, instead of saying, can you do everything for half the price? It's what are some of the services that we can remove, or what are the things that we can work on to get something that will fit within our budget or closer to our budget.
Right. And I think that is such a challenging thing for a lot of our couples because they just see price. They don't see service. You have to compare service. So you have to first understand what are all the services that are included. Now, I know for a fact when we work with your company, you guys bring it all. Like you'll have, 4 or 5 team members on a wedding day. Someone is helping the bride maybe to like fix her veil, fix her dress, make sure her bra's not hanging out in all the photos. Like you have a whole team. Some coordinators, it's just one person.
Right.
I know you're constantly on calls, right, with your clients. You schedule a ton of meetings. Some coordinators will put caps on that. You can call this many minutes or this many hours. And so in order to really even understand price, you have to really be able to look at what is included. What is that level of service that we're getting with this vendor versus that? If this is your top pick and you want to make it work for your budget, are there places that you can maybe scale back on some of those services instead of just price matching? Tessa, we've talked about this a number of times on our podcast about the difference between having a wedding at a hotel, right, and having a wedding at an outdoor venue. When you're looking at these two things, so if we're comparing pricing and services, I think a lot of times our couples will say, oh my gosh, like having a wedding at a hotel is so much more expensive, and we're going to do it at a venue. But in fact, the cost all in may be identical, maybe a little bit more. How do you understand that? If we're looking at services included versus pricing, help me wrap my brain around that if I am at that part of my planning.
Okay, so if we're looking at an outdoor catering versus a hotel, right, initially the cost is going to look dramatically different. So when you're just price shopping, you're not understanding what is included in the price. So, when you go to a venue or when you go to a caterer, we mentioned this earlier, but the better question to ask is what's included in this price. So if we're looking at a hotel and you're looking at a menu and it's $150 a head and you're like, wow, that's a lot of money. The outdoor caterer was only $50 a head. It's $100 cheaper. You have to realize at the hotel that cost includes the labor to cook the food, the servers, the tables, the chairs, the plates, the roof over your head, the bathroom, right? All of these things are built into that cost of the food, in addition to your venue fee, which you are also paying a venue fee at an outdoor space. Now your catering, which may be $50, could just be for food. That's not including your staffing. You also have to build a kitchen, so tents, ovens, woks, chafing dishes, warmers, all of those things. Plates. If you're doing a plated meal and you have a 5-course, you're renting 5 plates per person. So again, it's understanding the better question than just asking about price is what does it include? Are there any additional fees that we need to think about? If we're having a prime rib station at a hotel, most times they're adding another staff for that. So that's an additional cost. Same with an outdoor venue. If you're having prime rib there, you will likely need an additional server or cook to cut and serve the prime rib for you.
And again, how do you get at really making informed decisions about each of these different vendors, right? I want to recap a story you told me, and I think it's really fun.
Are you taking one of my stories?
I'm taking one of your stories. Actually, you can probably tell it better. You were telling me about this client that you have that literally went through a rental company's catalog and priced everything out. So, here's how much it costs to rent this sofa and this rug and this chair. And they were like, okay, we've created our budget and we know that we can plan this wedding for whatever set amount. And then you looked at it and you said, oh, sweetheart.
Right. It's tricky because, again, there's all of those additional fees, delivery, the setup, the breakdown. Every chair they charge to set up, every table they charge. Those are hidden fees that aren't included, right? So it's about asking the right questions. If they're reaching out to the vendors, what are additional fees that I need to be worried about or consider versus just looking at the price of 100 chairs, 10 tables, and a tent.
Right. And I mean, again, this is more of your wheelhouse, but if you think of here's how much it costs to rent these linen. You rented it. What do you do? Do you have somebody dropping off? Are they setting it up? Are they, picking up? Are they laundering it? What are those costs?
There's some costs. So you rent the linen, but if you want it pressed or steamed, there's an additional cost. So again, you have to be able to understand what's included in that price and what are the additional costs that you're going to need to consider. Okay, so next question, and I think this is kind of relevant to both of us. I get it a lot. You get it a lot too, but it really is, and for me, another awkward question because it's not awkward in the sense that it's bad. It's I don't know how best to answer it.
Okay.
And so the question is, can you tell me what your company does different from other wedding planners? And you get that too as a photographer, right?
Yeah. I mean, I'm I don't know. I don't know what I don't know because if I'm shooting a wedding, they're not.
Yeah. And I think I ask you this all the time. I'm like, help me be better. I'm like, what as a planner do I do well? What can I improve, right? You work with a lot of different planners. How do I be better? How do I just keep elevating my company? Right. And it's hard because I'm never at a wedding where I'm not the planner. I am literally there and I'm the planner.
You're never going to have that point of reference.
No.
Neither will I.
So it's a tough question to ask, right? So instead of saying, please tell me what you do differently from other planners or what do you do differently? I think a better question is, looking at your company, what are you proud of? What are those things that you do really well and you're proud of? What are the things that you do really well in your wedding planning company?
And that seems like such a less cringy question for me to personally answer versus like, how do you, like, you're like, why are you better? Like, I don't want to answer that question. Like, I think that there's a lot of amazing people out there, but what do I like take pride in? What do I think that my clients actually, when they work with me, they get to experience? I can talk about that all day long.
Right.
You know?
Yeah.
And so can you, you know?
Exactly. And I think it's a really fun question to answer too, because there's a lot of things that I'm proud of. It may not be different than other companies. I don't know. Again, I don't spend my day researching and comparing myself to other people. So they may do it just as well as I do, but this is what we're really proud of. If you're looking for a company that loves our couples, that loves taking care of them, that really dotes on them, that has a strong team, like this is who we are. Like we focus on certain areas, and that's what we love to do.
Tessa, I get this question a lot, and I'm not really sure ever how to answer it. How many weddings do you photograph in a year, or how many weddings have you photographed ever? Like,
right.
You know, like, do you get that question? How many weddings do you plan a year?
I get that a lot. And again, like, you know, I think you know this, but I get a lot of anxiety in my head of like, I'm an overthinker. So I think in two parts, right? When people are asking me, how many weddings do you do in a year? I go back to, well, why are you asking this question? Because it could go two ways, right? Number one, are you thinking I'm too busy, or are you thinking I'm too slow? And
or I think it also, in my mind, it's a question of, are you experienced enough to handle my wedding? Do you have you shot enough weddings so you're not like an amateur, you know, like photographer, or are you truly a professional? That's kind of how I interpret it. What's the better way to ask that question?
Right. So I think it's taking a step back and first figuring out, what are you actually trying to ask, right? If you're asking, you know, if you're worried, and again, I get in my head of what are they trying to ask me here? So if I say, hey, I do 100 weddings a year, are you worried that I'm too busy? If that's your concern, if you see my social media and you're like, oh, wow, she does a lot of weddings, she's on a lot of boards, she's not going to have time for me. Ask me that question. You know, what do you do to manage your time, or what's your process for managing multiple events? I can share everything about how I have a larger team than most, that everything that I do on my volunteer side builds and leads credibility to me and my team that assists your wedding. I know how to manage my time. That's something that I'm very proud of.
So I'm a client and I'm thinking, your business is a little sus. Like I'm thinking, like I'm interviewing this person and I'm like, do they really do weddings? Like, what's the best way to find out that answer? Are you a full-time wedding vendor, or are you just like a weekend warrior that, you know, just does this for fun?
Right. And so on the exact flip side of what I'm concerned about in my head, like, are you too busy? If you're wondering, do they have enough experience, right? It's, I think, trying to be specific. Do you have experience at my venue? Have you shot here?
Right.
You know, can I see some of the samples of work? You know, for you as a photographer, can you show me some samples of weddings you've done at this venue?
Yeah.
Just to understand, you may have only shot there twice, but if you've killed it and you've done a great job, then I don't think it matters that they've only done 2 weddings there.
Sure.
Right.
Yeah.
But it's, do they have the willingness? If they haven't shot at the venue, I'm also saying don't rule them out. But what are they going to do to be comfortable before they get there? Are they going to show up on the day and hope for the best? Are they working with a planner that has been there so they can guide them? You know, we've definitely worked with photographers who have never shot at certain venues, and my team is the one taking the lead and telling them these are places that works. These are some that don't. You know, since it's at this time, we have to head out. So it's definitely a partnership with your planner if you're looking for that or if that's your concern. But again, asking the right questions. How many weddings you do in the year, I just feel like you're not going to get the answer that you're looking for without digging a little deeper and asking more specific questions.
It's like, what's the question behind the question?
Exactly.
Right. Get specific. Have you ever photographed a wedding at this particular venue? Yeah, I've shot 1 million, or I've never, but then let the photographer or whoever continue talking. But here's what I usually do if I've never been to a venue before. I'm going to scout out the locations. I'm going to talk to maybe the coordinator about different locations that are really cool for photos or whatever. You want to get into that level of detail because that's the question under the question.
Exactly. And again, what we're trying to do today is find out what are the real questions that you're trying to actually ask.
Yeah. Here's a great example of that. And I get this a lot. What is your editing turnaround time? Like everybody's going to have like their, like whatever they contractually say, like it's going to be 3 months, 6 months, 12 years.
Don't book that photographer, guys.
But I think a better way to actually ask this question. And if we're going into the specificities of a question, it's this. Like, tell me about what you're editing right now. Like, what was the wedding? When was it shot? When do you anticipate delivering? What was the wedding before that? Like, how long, the last 2-3 weddings, how long did it actually take you to edit those photos and deliver those photos in entirety? For video, what edits are you currently working on? When was the wedding? When do you anticipate actually delivering that? Tell me about the last 3. You can get a really good sense of someone's actual turnaround time. You know, because like on paper, I think our contract says something silly. It's like 6 to 8 weeks for photo turnaround. Usually it's like 2 to 3 is my goal. That's also really helpful to know. There's the contractual side of the question, and there's the practical, real side of the question. Like, what can I actually expect?
Got it. So you're saying instead of asking, what is your turnaround time? Because people could lie, or they could say, hey, it's 6 months. I have 6 months. If you're kind of excited and you really want the details, ask the photographer or videographer or anyone with post-wedding turnaround, what are you working on right now, right? Realistically, how much time, like, are you working on a wedding from 10 months ago just because you got behind? Is it, 2 weeks ago? Like, what are you working on right now to give you a real life idea of when your photos, your videos, whatnot might be ready? So Joe, I'm no florist, but I get a lot of questions about a lot of different vendors. And so what I get a lot is, how much is this wedding on Pinterest? They have a photo, they have an image, they have a vision of what they want. How much is this? What a lot of times they're really talking about are the florals, right? And I think I've mentioned this before. When we're looking at Pinterest or galleries or something online, people are often asking, like, how much does this cost? Is this doable? They're not understanding that the picture is really, you're looking at the details, maybe the rentals, maybe the florals. You're not looking at how many hours of photo they have. You're not looking at the DJ. You're not looking at whether they had a buffet or 5-course meal, right? So all of those factors are really different. What you're specifically asking is, visually, how much does this cost? And so for me, that goes a lot to florals, right? Instead of just saying, how much did this cost? Or how much is this? I love these flowers. It's having that conversation with a florist, going a little deeper and saying, I love the way this looks based on, again, time of year, where you are in the world, right? A lot of those factors, a lot of those prices will change. We want to try to avoid just price questions. What can I do to make my wedding look like this? What are things that we can do? What are flowers that we can work with during my time of year, during my wedding date to get this look?
Can I ask you this question? Can you guess like how much these weddings cost that you're seeing on Pinterest? Do you have any idea of like how far off you are or how close you are to the budget?
Well, again, yes and no, right? Because when I'm looking at these, I have no idea about anything other just the visual. So if we're saying, if you want this dining canopy with the draping florals and crystals, I have an idea of how much that is. But if you're saying all in for this budget, sometimes when you're looking at these photos, they're detailed. You don't even know if it's a 3-person wedding or a 200-person. You don't have all that information. So if you're asking me for a general budget of this entire wedding,
could be anything.
It's impossible.
Yeah. Okay. So I guess like reframing what you're saying though, if you're like, look, I like this look, and it's about that specific thing, the floral, like if I want to have a full like floral design, how much would that cost? That starts with the florist.
Correct.
You can also like kind of high level look at some rentals, kind of how much different chairs, cost. So you're kind of taking it apart. You're looking at 6 or 7 different services and trying to just ballpark that idea. What's the better way to ask that question?
So the better question, instead of saying, how much is this wedding? How much does this cost? The better question is, how much is the decor that I see in this photo? Again, rentals, florals, like if we look at just a snapshot, I can give you a pretty ballpark of what that cost. Again, I don't know any of the unseens. I don't know what they paid for their planner. I don't know how much her hair and makeup cost or her dress, or, without knowing any of the vendors, and you're just sending me a screenshot on Pinterest, I'm best guessing what it relates to here in Hawaii for what you want.
Is Justin Bieber going to be playing at your wedding?
Well, I mean, if there's a picture of him, then we know that, yes, we have to include him in the budget. But if we don't see him, then we don't know that your entertainment is Justin Bieber.
Right, exactly. Well, Tessa, I think these are some of the big questions that I always kind of struggle with as a vendor trying to answer. I think, like the big takeaway for me today, be intentional about the questions you're asking. That's the whole point.
Exactly. And I love that. Intentional, informed decisions is what we do throughout the planning process. So it's not just at the initial consult, but it is throughout the process. What are the right questions to ask so you can get the information that you're looking for in order to make informed decisions for your wedding.
And as the old saying goes, you don't know what you don't know. Now you know.
Is that? I've never heard that. Is that a saying?
It sure is. Well, with that, it's a wrap, guys. It's been a lot of fun. We will catch you on another show.
Bye.
Thanks for listening to another episode of Unveiling Paradise.
If you enjoy our show, please follow us and rate us on Spotify or wherever you listen to podcasts. It would really mean a lot.
And don't forget to also get on our mailing list and follow us on Instagram. Just do it already.
Until next time, this is Tessa.
And this is Joe.
And don't forget, your happily ever after
It's just a plane ride away.